All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Maerlande. I'm going to decided I wanted to talk a bit about a strategy that gets very popular in discussion on the Discord servers. And this is the idea of an awake research pretender for Dominions 5. And the awake research pretender is used to get you quickly up, mostly into the Alteration School of Research, so that you can use inexpensive magi to go out and buff ordinary troops with simple spells such as Luck, Body Ethereal, Moss Body. And I've got a couple of guests. Helene and Sepharicent are chatting with me in Discord.
Hello. Elaine just left.
Oh, did he? Okay. I missed that. He might be back. Yeah, so just one guest right now. And as kind of a archetypal nation for this, I'm going to take a look at early age Marverni. So on the screen you can see I'm having a quick look at the Make Pretender screen. Hey, there we go. So you won't be able to talk to me if you're on Twitch by voice. I assume that's Helene. Yeah, the sound is generally better on Discord, and I've got Twitch background coming. I've got it muted so I don't get echoes. So let's talk about why Marverni is a suitable nation. And probably what we want to look at is 45 gold for an Astral 1 buffing mage, which is dirt cheap. And that's why this is a nation where this can work. In a way, Marverni might be not one of the easiest nations to consider it. Not easy, but it's also got tattoos, which if you're familiar, let's just have a look at a standard kind of cheap. Oh, that's a chieftain. Let's look at a unit. About bearer, javelineers. There we go. So they've got the tattoos, which you can activate using some of your magi and priests. I'll get into that in a little more detail. So if we kind of do a national review, classic stuff with Marverni, they've got the serious Elder Druids. Now these guys are far too expensive to use for this point buffing idea. You're going to want to buy them. They're capital only, and they're 4 recruitment points, so you're not going to make them quickly. But they're your core of an awful lot of things. And then on the inexpensive side, you've got the Gutu Atters. I'm not sure the pronunciation you might want to use there. And predominantly they're a nature mage, but they also have mixed pass. And this opens up one of the other options, with nature and water. You have Moss Body is another point buffing spell. But the core is definitely going to be using your Sequani Stargazers. So that's pretty clear, guys.
Yeah, I have a question. So you have some Marverni experience, I assume?
I've played them in the past, and the most recent was they were my teammate in a Disciples game. We did not use this strategy for that, and it wasn't as popular then. I mean, arguably the idea of using the small area effect buffs has been around forever, but I would give credit that a focus towards it by actually picking a pretender dedicated to it is kind of new, or at least a lot more popular.
Right. So I have a question, because I'm reading Magic Earth, Astral, Nature, Water. I don't see blood, and then it says the priest can blood sacrifice. Is this because of summons, or?
No, this is one of the bizarre oddities of Marverni. It can blood sacrifice, but the only way that's going to happen is if you trade, or you get blood on the pretender to get started, or you are in a Disciples team. The easiest way is it's powerful when you're on a Disciples team that you get fed slaves from blood slaves from one of your teammates.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it is one of those oddities. It's not the only nation that has some national ability that you can't use unless you really dedicate yourself towards it.
Yeah.
So Troops-wise, um, a lot of people are very fond of the Yaponis. They're a very inexpensive cavalry, quite adequate for expansion. And then you've got your Boer warriors, if you want to blast. Um, in order to really roll them out, you're going to need some extra resources. They're not awesome. They're fine. I think the price is adequate for what they do. And then the big thing about a Marverni is a whole bunch of guys with no armor to speak of, and they're really cheap, and you can use a tremendous number of javelins. I wouldn't recommend slingers, but large amounts of javelins can work for many things. And you do have the tattoos, and then you got the classic bare-chesteds. Again, very poor protection, so they die a lot, but they kill pretty well. 11 attack skill is pretty good for a 10 gold guy. And some people like, the Carnoots, gives you berserk. There's situational units, or situations where that's appropriate. And here's your basic priest. We've kind of done a quick review of the Magi. Boar Lords are, I'm not sure what exactly the purpose of them is, because they don't have holy levels, so while they're sacred, they can't blast. I guess the big one is if you need more leadership. You've got a basic scout. And then there's some advantage to these guys. You sprinkle them into formations for the standard effect. Morale when you've got guys that are going to take a lot of damage because they're naked, like no armor, morale's pretty useful. And the various tattoos, the bear adds strength and invulnerability, so that's pretty solid. I think some of them have double tattoos. They've got the boar, so again, invulnerability. And a discussion of invulnerability is a bit more complex. I think maybe we'll leave that for the time being. So if we move on from here into pretender options, sort of the archetype here is you want to get the maximum research possible, which is basically the Great Sage. You're going to want to go awake. And then I've seen various ideas of grabbing some bless or not bothering with the bless. Marverni has a mechanic where they can get basically infinite numbers of sacred boars. Yeah. Hi, how you doing? We got a guy here on text chat. Ithelser, I'm going to pronounce it. And so I think I'm going to start with a concept of a simple blast. I'm going to go with, first off, I'm going to go with an elemental bless. Yeah, specifically the topic today isn't really Marverni. It's Marverni as an example of a wake researcher god, pretender, doing point buffing. Thanks, Seferson.
Cheers.
So notice, as soon as I get 3 in all the elements, I'm allowed a basic bless. And if I want to, I could do the same with the sorcery pass. I think for the sake of not... Now, candles are expensive with any rainbow chassis, any of the Dominion 1 pretender chassis. I believe I'm very tempted in this situation. I would probably go with at least some growth for recruitment points. The balance between order and production, we may end up needing to tweak this. It's based on having enough resources in your capital and recruitment points to get enough troops. I would argue that this isn't a bad option to go for luck. And magic skills is always going to help any kind of fast research attempt. Now I really don't want to be stuck with only Astral 1. There's a few reasons, most importantly forging, and the other one is possibly defending against magic duel, but this is not somebody you're going to want to send out. Now that ends up with an awkward amount of design points left over. I'm not too fond of Astral 3. Astral 4 at least gives us a bless. And then at least 1 point in the other ones. Because there, now I'm sitting at minus 35, so that's pretty optimal. And now we got choices of how are we going to pay for this. So I think we definitely have to get the most we can out of temperature.
So wait, why did you pick an additional point in Death, Nature, and Blood?
Largely because all of them can be fairly easily buffed with equipment, boosted to 2 and 3 and 4. And then there's cross paths. For example, the classic with Death and Fire is Skull of Fire.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and then Nature, there's a number of possible cross pass goodies. You could argue that if you really want to be a Forge later on, you'd want Air 4. But with Astro 4, we do have the option of making, well, yeah, you know, whatever nation. Part of the reason I went with Marverni for the point buffing is because it came up in the conversation on the Discord earlier today. And I haven't had a look at Marverni in ages, and I might turn this into some stuff on a Marverni guide. So I'm just playing around. Obviously, the other thing is you're going to maximize your research capability with the Great Sage by going with cheap amounts of magic, and at 10 points per new path, that's cheap. You could definitely argue that you might want to go all with 2s. And we're not that far off. So if we do bump them all to 3s, now we've got a huge blast. But I'm going to try here the cheap way. Now, am I better off with 1 or 2? See, that's 85 points, so that's 2 scales. So I'm going to grab 1 in production for a little more income. Now I've got I'm thinking the growth is maybe a mistake. I don't know. This is not obvious. But what I'm definitely going to do is take some magic. So preferably we go magic 3. So I'm going to drop there. I think that's viable. Well, you know, trying to think, what does Vedheim have for cheap Magi's that can point buff? I don't think they're that cheap, are they? But I don't really know Vedheim. We can bring over the Mod Inspector. Well, that's not the screen I want to show. So let's just send that somewhere else. And that's not the screen I want to show either. What are you guys seeing there? There we go.
The Inspector, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, the core here of the idea is when you're looking at point buffing is let's just look at commanders, national only, and let's look at cost. So here we are sitting here, 45 gold for a point buffer, and then if we look at the Kudu Adder, that also has a reasonable chance of water for moss body, so that's the second kind of point buffing. So now you've got the Astral, and you've got the other options. I'm just going to move the screen for me, so it's different. So I think you've got 2 of the more interesting options for point buffing. You've also got some Earth options, and there's some good point buffs in Earth. Whereas if we were to look at Vedheim, what have you got cheap? You got the Hag. So 1 in 5 is going to have Astral. None of them are going to have Nature and Water. I'm not thinking that's as good for the mage choices. I don't know if it's more efficient for short-term research to trade magic skills for additional sorcery pass. I would have to do math, and in this case, mostly I'm just doing a live example of let's think it through. So we could sure ask those questions. And if we move the Mod Inspector out of the way, trouble is we got to finish the Dominion screen. Why are you guys seeing my Dominion screen, or did it disappear on me?
Oh, it's on.
I moved the wrong screen. That's why. I can in my recording software I can move these things around, but I got to activate the right one. So I suppose the argument would be, let's drop this and let's go for more magic. Can we pull off the 3s? We just can't. So that's a lot of magic pass. Now, I saw a guy today, earlier this morning, who was talking about dropping them all to 1, not going for any bless, and just totally maxing out the scales. But I think you lose out on research. He showed in his example 38 research points. And if I remember right,
you need the 1 production though, because you said they're all bare-chested, so I'd imagine they're very cheap production-wise.
well, you might want the ability to swap that out for Carnoots or Boar Warriors or something. But especially here, we've actually got quite a bless. So, I don't know. Tough call. Now, I think for bless, it's kind of blatantly obvious. Attack skill. For air, getting them faster, not a bad option. But if we're going with Magi, I might be tempted to go with, well, Major Shock is awfully fine. I'm just going to grab some quick potential blesses. If we're going to use large amounts of cheap sacreds like the Boars or the Boar Warriors, I'll go defense. So I'm not getting resist here. And then strength, that just increases their killing power. For astral, I think I'll go with magic weapons. And for death, probably undying. Just make them live longer. There's an argument I could try to pull off larger, but I don't think... Where the heck did larger go? Larger is... Yeah, I'd have to buy more earth. I think I'm going to skip that. So I think I'm going to go with major poison resistance. And since we're stuck with just a single point left, I could get more hit points, but I think we're better off with... No, low light vision's nothing too special. Maybe we'll just give him an extra hit point. And then for blood, we'll just get strength. So if we do have sacreds, they're going to hit crazy hard. But I'm not going to worry about optimizing the bless at the moment. I just want to see where we get. Alright, so there's Anfar. Have a quick look at him. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Where'd he go? There he is. So he's got 70 research points. This guy that was showing an example where he only went with single path and everything for magic only had 38. So that's near double. I think that's significant. So let's just try a game. Any questions while we're at this stage?
No, not really, I don't think.
Okay. A quick and dirty. I often just go with Silent Seas for simple testing. Marv research test. And I've got no mods on. There's lots of mods you could use that would have minimal effect on this and make your game a little more fun, but for the sake of this, I don't care who the opponents are, and I don't care about their AI, because I just want to try out some stuff. And we'll grab the guy we just made. I didn't bother password protecting him. And standard setups. I guess I should set some kind of thrones. I got 4 points. Yeah, I'll grab a couple of 2s. I'll grab 6 1s. I'll skip the 3s. And what have I got there? 4. I'll go with 6 points to win. Okay, good. Don't think I want to care about anything else. I think for testing, story events I want off. Might leave score graphs on since it's just testing. And here we go. So, we're sitting here. We'll get this guy on research and let's see where we end up. So we definitely want to go for what we're looking at. Luck and body ethereal. And then potentially, nature, moss body. So our target, 50, 150. I'm trying to remember. I think it would be 350 research points to get us to luck and moss body, and then a little longer for getting to body ethereal. This guy will profit him, and I think we'll probe the throne. Now, what are we going to buy? Well, pretty obviously we want some research, so I'll buy a Stargazy or a Sequani Stargazer, and cheap. I'm sitting at 93 resources, 234. So I'm going to go for these guys are 8 and 5, 8 and 9. Let's see if we can max out the javelins. Okay, so we ran out of resources significantly before we ran out of... No, I think I'm going to change this around. And to give us a little bit of a harder hit off the beginning, I'll just go with the Pony Knights. How many can I get? That's pretty good. Yeah, that's a little bit more efficient use of my resources. Even though I have a Bless, I'm just going to skip on the Boar Warriors for the time being. Does that make sense? Recruitment points. Actually, it doesn't. I'm going to try out some Boar Warriors. Yeah, it's kind of an odd combo, but because we have such low candles, Dominion score. Okay, first turn. Alright. Why did I end up with Conjuration? Whoops, my error. Sorry about that. Oh well, that sets us back maybe half a turn. Oh, well, that's pretty substantial amount of troops. I'm not going to try to go there. Bone Tribe hit really hard. So that's not where I'm going to be wanting to go. Alright. So right off the bat, put this guy on Divine Blessing. Then just cast spells because I don't care a heck of a lot. Move him forward a bit. I think what I'll do just to get it started is he's only got 2 leadership. Now these guys have the hats, so they're just a tiny bit tougher. I'll just stick them up forward. Not even going to give them any orders because they're just going to throw their jabs anyways. And I'll send, which way is most interesting to me, I'll send that first scout this way. And I got some Hoborgs. Well, that's going to be a really easy attack. Although if I go up there, I'm going to have a bit of a tough time. And this is not a great start because this map doesn't have the best start. So I'm not going to have a lot of resources. So it might be a map where I would have done better to use some more production skill. So, any other questions? You guys have gone silent for a while, but if you have anything you want to ask, just feel free. Either type it in Twitch or ask me here by voice.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to host this turn. Whoops. There we go. And boom. So, easy peasy. Now I have a challenge. Oh, look at that. Therados showed up already. Well, I guess I'm kind of glad I moved that direction off the bat. Here's an entertaining tidbit if you're playing single player. For reasons kind of unknown, the AI seems to not like to attack Province Defense 7. So we won't be going north. We won't be going into the water. So we might as well head back. We can get one more Pony Knight. For now, we'll save our gold. Well, that's
Maerlande,
actually...
a question from Ithil.
Yep. Hang on. Let me switch over. I have no idea if I would use point buffing in a real game because I've never used it. I consider somewhat in general the cost in scales not necessarily worthwhile, but other people disagree with me on that topic. So, I guess, Ithil, sir, your answer is I have not deliberately chosen to research the point buff spells in alteration by using the pretender awake. I'm very questionable, or to me it's questionable whether it's worth going dormant, getting much better scales, and being a few turns later on the point buffing. Because most nations can do expansion just fine without it. Where it really applies is either if you want to rush a neighbor or if you want to counter a rush. Then point buffing becomes a lot more important. And to me, the most effective method to manage being rushed is diplomacy. Hope that answers your question. Alright, we've maxed out what we can buy. Actually, we can pick up another, and get one of these guys. And let's pick, well, it'd be nice to have a Gudu Adder, just so that if we get the chance, we can show Moss Body at work. If we get the right one. And that actually allows us, oh, hold on here, got another pony. Now we're going to need some basic independent commanders, but no chance here. The Hoborgs need a temple or a lab, so they're no help. And I don't really want to spend capital turns on a basic commander, definitely at this moment. So here we go. We've reached Alteration 2. We're going to hit Alteration 3 in 2 turns. And that gives us at least luck. And possibly Moss Body. Well, we didn't get the right random. So I think we're going to want more Stargazers. Which reduces what we can get for one of those. Now, we've got a bit of an issue that we're going to end up with a few too many formations, so let's put all the javelins in one big mob. We'll put them on a flank. We'll get these guys actually attacking. We'll add the rest of them. And for the time being, we'll put our 5 knights on defense. For anybody who doesn't know, I had the Z key hit. Turns on and off your researchers in your army setup screen. Just one of those handy tidbits. So now I really have no choice but to go around this throne. So another map might have given me a few more options. Script Y key, for those who don't know, gives you the armies moving to a province rather than the armies in a province. And we got morale boost, so it's looking pretty good. These guys will take the hits. And we're off and running. So we haven't sent out any Magi, because at the moment, if we look here at Astral, Cheat Fate just isn't that big a deal. I don't think it's worthwhile to move Magi out at this point. What we're looking for is luck, and then Body Ethereal. So we're sitting on turn 4. We haven't rolled out any of our point buffing options. And that went fine. Lost a couple Boar Warriors, but we're making 4 a turn, so that's not too significant. And that should have significantly improved our resources. So we can actually... No, we can't quite go with those, but we can go with 3 of those. So there we go. Add in a little province defense. Therados is coming ripping around at me. Gosh, he's totally sandwiched me. Well, I guess this is going to make this a very interesting bit of testing. But we can now at least start to recruit some independent commanders. So we're probably going to either have to pick a war in this little test game, so I might change maps and redo this. Nothing really worthwhile to make changes here. Now I'm trying to remember, some of these guys that you can purchase actually have decent leadership, so what I may need now is I may need to grab a priest. That lets me grab, so I run out the Boar Warrior, switch around. Alright. Any other questions? We're kind of moving along in a pretty straightforward manner. Oh, and now he's a hero. All right, so, pretty straightforward. So now we're really stuck. And now I'm thinking this whole thing might go better if I use a different map, because I'm not really able to demonstrate a great example. So rather than waste more time on this one, let's just get out of here and create a new game with a better map. I don't want anything too big. What have I got? Some of these are Old Dominion's 4 maps. I'm kind of looking in that around 100 size. Big Black Peaks. Well, that's very straightforward. 4 to 8 players, 1 underwater. What else have I got? Haha. Oh yeah, I should probably do that, just for the heck of it. No. Try a different one. Parganos with a wraparound. Pelaware. Well, Pelaware is very, very pretty. So let's play with Pelaware. What the heck? So we're just going to start this again. Early Ages. Marverni. Probably go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go with 6 so we got extra space. So we're really just trying to test things. Grab the Pretender again. And just change up thrones a little bit. Grab, I don't know, 3 2s. 8 1s. And put this up to 8 points. Good. Alright. Here we go, trying this in a little bit different method. Hopefully we get a start where we get a few more ways to go and we don't get squished into a corner so quick. So get our research. Let's set us up for our alteration for target right off the bat. Get our Stargazer. Grab some Boar Warriors. Grab ourselves a Knight. And 3 cheap Javelins. Profit this guy. Send out our Scout. And I'm going to pick nice farm there. Nice farm here. Let's probe this farm. Because if there's nothing too funky in it, it'll be nice to grab that farm early. I kind of know Pymus's maps, and his farms are kind of a good dead giveaway with a little bit of what kind of looks like wheat fields. Alright. And off we go. Oh, well, that's going to be pretty straightforward. Some slingers and some hoplites. So I don't think we'll have much of a problem there. Go to the same technique I used the last time. Put those guys on guard. Put the slightly heavier guys a little bit farther front. This guy on Divine Bless and probably Smite. Grab those few extra javelins. Oh boy, I got some pretty tough things to fight early on. To be honest though, well, I'm going to go for that farm. I might bounce, but we'll find out soon enough. Quick check of our research. Everything good there. Alright, off we go. So we got it, and the costs were perfectly acceptable for grabbing what is, I hope, a nice farm. Yeah, I do have indie mages, so that is nice. And javelins too, generally. Oh, he got cursed. Ha! Ah well, not a huge problem. Should probably watch this. I wonder if he's throwing tattoos out if I've left him. I can't remember if, a little bit rusty. Can't remember if the range on tattoos. So there's Divine Bless. Beyond that. So we got some hits with the javelins. I think I got to I got to adjust my sounds here a little. Let me get my volume mixer and turn the minions down a little bit. Like way down. There we go. That's better. So, that's pretty straightforward. He's going to have to go back home to collect troops. That one is worth 104 gold, so I would say that's quite worth the effort I put into it. We got 2 of the Stargazers ready to go. As far as resources, can we grab one more knight? We can. Alrighty. And we should be able to start recruiting an independent commander. If I add more resources, I would probably look here to start getting some spearmen. Since I've got more gold than I can really use. And that guy's hiding. Let's see what he can find. Of course, I definitely am going to want... So that's not a heck of a lot of lizard warriors. It's showing 10 now. It showed about 30. It tends to error by a factor of 50% up or down, so it's probably 20 lizard warriors. So a large mob of javelins would probably take that swamp. I can't remember if cyanocephalians have indie mages either. I think they do. I don't know if they're terribly good. There is a way, somehow or other, in the mod inspector to look up the independent pop types, but we can also very quickly turn off national only and look them up. So they got a shaman, only available in mountains though. Is that a mountain? It is a waste. So my guess is no, we're not going to find anything like that. Got a guy asking some questions. So I might be switching to answer some of his questions about Nazca. I mean, this is a stream, so it could kind of be a questions and answers session as much as it is really anything else. And I think that's it. Well, somebody's fighting lots. So, do I have anything? I've got alteration 2, but not alteration 3. See, these are looking 20, so my guess they're probably 15 to 20. How many javelins do I have total? I would say quite inadequate for the purpose of trying to take out those lizards. But it's possible I have enough boar warriors. And if I fail, I fall back a turn. The Pegasus riders are probably not a huge issue, but that's pretty big. That's a lot of barbarians, so I would have wanted a lot more javelins. So sadly, I'm actually just gonna... I get luck this turn, so that'll make the whole idea of doing some point buffing perfectly possible. So let's just do a quick preach. Looks like I don't have my...
I've got a couple questions. They're not pertaining to the particular turn you're on, and I'm just a noob just starting off too. But
Sure,
I'm
go
playing
ahead.
Marverni, and I've got the piggies that I summoned. And I thought like the plan was, oh, I could have a big bless, and the pigs are sacred, so that would be awesome. But it seems that I'm not able to use that because they are using up tons of supplies, so I can't even bring extra troops with them. Like they're much better just by themselves, and they can also move 2 provinces. So what do you think about that? Am I wrong, or
Run that by me again. The problem is I don't have pigs to look at yet, so
yeah?
it's a
So
little hard.
so a group of 40 pigs with the
Okay.
pig commander
Okay.
is using about 180 supplies.
Okay.
And at least on this map, most provinces are around 160, 170. So I'm not able to bring anything with them.
Well, do you care if some pigs starve?
I don't care if the pigs starve, but I don't want the other units to starve. I don't want my
And you,
mages and their troops with them to starve.
you can use nature to forge supply items, and you can bring nature mages, which also provide free supplies. So if you want a big doom stack, that works.
That is an option. Um, if you're raiding or you're just pushing forward, they won't starve that first turn anyways. So you can always push them out and pull it back.
So the starve only happens if you linger in the province.
Well, the first turn that they run short of supplies, if you've got 200 supplies and 300 required points, 100 size points worth of those guys will not get fed. They'll start starving the next turn. Which ones they are, I think, is by order of recruitment, so the last recruited are the ones that starve. I believe that's how that works. That the supplies go first to whoever's recruited first, which you can, I think, somewhat manage by, the order in which you buy things. In the case of your summons, like the auto summons, they're going to be some from every turn for the last however many turns your great boars have been summoning them. And 40 pigs, I'm not entirely sure that you need to send anything much with them. The problem with pigs is that I've had in the past, they're undisciplined, and so it's really hard to throw any buffs on them anyways unless it's long range because they've already run past the buffing. I have used, when I've used them, is stick my magi ahead of them and have them run past the magi in order to get buffs on them. But a lot of the time I just sort of think of as the boars as fire and forget weapons. They're kind of guided missiles.
That's also my experience with them. You can use them for one turn in a huge battle if you like merge small raiding squads together into one big pile with mages and then split it up again.
Yeah.
But usually they are just, you don't care if they starve, they trample PD, and when they starve to death, you have a new pile of them at home.
So, yeah. That's kind of where I'd be with using the boars in that situation. So I'm going to move the inspector back out of the way. And I'll prep the next turn. Now, I need to put these knights on guard commander. I have a choice. Well, this is just single player against ordinary AIs, and I did get pretty tough. I think I'd rather not waste my attrition or lose too much to attrition, so I'm going to just wait a turn. Let's check the research, and let's check the recruitment again. Okay, just run this turn through. So my independent commander is ready to go. Alright, let's see if we can set up some point buffing and actually have it do something. So we'll send along 2. We'll send them all because I don't think, what are they making? 8 research points apiece versus the 70. That's pretty insignificant. So we'll send the whole mob. Now we got to play with the setup. So this gets significantly more challenging. I'm going to put the... So what I want to bless, or what I want to point buff, is I want to point buff the boar warriors. And I'd prefer that anything of the independence that attacks comes towards the boar warriors, so I'll push them ever so slightly in front. I'll go for the lizards here. Now I can see my setup. Now, we want to check our range. So let's set up luck. Luck space, 3 luck. And then they can cast whatever they want, which will be Starfires. The range of luck, we'll just set that on hotkey 3. We'll just review the range there for luck, which I believe should be 5. One more time here. Range is 10 actually. Area of effect is 1, which is their size 2, so that's 3 guys. Looks like if you look at Twitch, there's Ithilser is talking a bit more about the boars. So it would be easier to answer any question about bores if we had bores to look at. So set this guy on that same setup. I'm going to move these guys a little bit farther forward. And I think I really don't want them to screw around buffing the javeliners. Now for now they're probably going to luck themselves, so let's try making sure they're all in the same square. They're size 2, so all 3 should be in the same square. So the first one to cast luck should only affect that square. So I'll admit, I've not done this before significantly, so I'm not an expert on it. Let's just see how this rolls out. So now, well, I still want another one of those guys. And I bought pretty much everything I can. So let's see how this works out. This is definitely a battle we're going to want to watch. Well, okay, so I lost 2 boar warriors. So what actually did the damage? See if the buffs work. Oh, I forgot to put them on hold. And how did that guy end up over there? Alright, my bad. But I did get luck on some of them. Not enough, but... And the lizards did come at the boar warriors. Thank you, Sabblecat. Just got a follower there. Alright. Well, that was highly effective, and I didn't really need the point buffing. But there you go. Partly that's because I got that serious bless. So for the sake of testing things out, let's move these guys back. Now we got shaman, which is nice. I've got the money, but I need a priest in order to temple and lab up over there. And even if I temple and lab, I'm not going to get them very quickly, and I don't really want a fort there. So it's conservative as a way to play, but I'm going to have them move back. So I think with a group of 5 of these guys, or even 6, I'm actually going to grab an extra priest. No, I'm just going to keep doing stargazers for a while. So we're sitting on turn 6. We've just started to be able to use some of our point buffing. We're not going to see body ethereal show up until, looks like, what are we at here? That's 4 more turns. So that's not until turn 10. Again, that's one of the questions I have about this Awake Researcher strat. We're trying to get things like body ethereal before turn 12, when any rainbow would show. That's a lot of design points we've sacrificed to get a small number of turns of these things coming out early. Like I said, I'm a little skeptical that this is efficient. Alright. So I did kind of promise that if Clubbing Seal dropped by, have a look here, he's here. If he dropped by, we'd have a look at Nazca and answer some questions. So if you guys don't mind, I'll do 1 more turn, or maybe 2, and I'll see if I can get rid of these Sinophalians. And then we'll move over to some stuff on my current Nazca game. Alright, so recruitment's still carrying on. Now I've got a few more resources. Grab another knight. If I grab...
Is this teaching stream like a thing you do on a regular basis? Is it on any kind of schedule, or is it just random?
To be honest, I started Twitch almost a year ago. Then I had a laptop fry, burnt out, lost all my settings and lost my motivation. And then I've actually been fighting some illness. So I just started back on Boxing Day streaming. But I'm very willing to do this on a regular basis. You can find me here, and if you got questions, just come and ask me, and we'll just jump and stream something for the heck of it. My schedule is a little wonky. I'm a cancer survivor, and I tend to nod off at strange times. It's just due to the surgeries I had. I'm in remission, so yeah, I'm trying to become more regular, but I also do move everything over to YouTube for longer term because Twitch doesn't keep stuff up very long.
Yeah.
And I do try to do some series of more detailed stuff on YouTube. So, but the idea of just doing Q&A sessions, I'm totally into that. That's a fun way to do Twitch, and I like doing Twitch where I invite people to come and ask questions in voice here in Discord. As long as it doesn't get too big. I had one where I had 12 people, and that sort of got out of control. Well, if they're just listening, no problem. Did I get an answer there, Fleshbits?
Yeah, man. Sounds great. I'll hit you up for sure.
Yeah, and I may get myself back into a schedule. It's Christmas break. I've got my son here for his Christmas vacation, and that makes things a little wonky. We have to share the computer. That's supposed to change right away. He just bought himself a beautiful, nice new gaming laptop, but it got delayed in shipping. So we're sort of bummed out because we expected to be sitting here side by side with two gaming machines.
I had that a couple of years ago.
Did you?
I think it's a good idea that you upload the Twitch VODs to YouTube because it's a lot more accessible. And like you said, Twitch gets rid of them after a couple of weeks.
It's only 2 weeks, yeah. Well, and I can do some editing on YouTube, although, I like to add a title page and credits and those things, but I can't do much of that using that crappy YouTube built-in editor. And if I take one of my videos after I exported it from Twitch and then edit it, I end up with 2 videos, and so the comments get muddled up. So I think what I'm going to do is Twitch streams are probably going to go up on YouTube pretty much raw, and then if I'm doing a series of more detailed analysis, I'll do those differently. So let's put this together and let's script this a little bit better. So now we can use the opposing knights. So let's put them on this guy and let's get these guys how they're supposed to be, on hold and attack closest, and the Javelineers on hold and fire. Get the rest of these boar warriors out there. Get these opposing knights, so we'll go hold and attack, rear. So now I think what I want the boar warriors to do, because they're blast, not bother buffing them and buff these knights. And I gotta put all these guys down here in the corner. And I really don't want this guy. One thing I always do is I always set hold, stay behind, and set that on hotkey 1. And this guy, probably want him somewhere around here. Alright. So, did I finish shelter? No, I didn't finish it, but they will get it. They won't get it this turn. So we'll just use them on the luck. Although I'm going to switch this up to 1 luck, 1 cheat fate, and another luck. Call that 3. Switch them all to 3. 3, 3. And just for the simplicity of being able to see, I'm going to move my pretender back to the corner and just put him on cast spells. Alright, so let's send everybody at the Cenophlians. And everybody is in... Oh, we didn't add these guys. So what we're going to do is point buff the cavalry. We'll just see how that works. Okay, we'll run this through, and then we'll shift over to some questions and answers on Nazca. And send it out. Well, okay, look at that. There is a shaman there. Might mean we can recruit them. Let's watch this. Oh, so he actually got luck way over there. Well, that's not such a bad thing. And they luck themselves. Okay, and they cheat faded kind of all over the place. We should get a little bit more luck going out, but nope. Okay, well, I have to say I'm not terribly experienced at doing this stuff, so I don't think I have my spacing quite right. Can definitely work on that in the future. Well, that's my issue with the awake researcher concept, is to spend 150 design points to get, what are you going to get? 3-4 turns earlier versus buying more magi and maybe a second fort up by turn 12. Where it's really going to matter is if you get rushed. Okay, well, I don't think we learned a lot here. I don't think we learned a lot. And what I'm going to do for the sake of clubbing seal, whoops, that was an accident. Habits of almost never playing AI, I hit end turn all the time when what I want is save and quit. So I've got some older, just behind enough that my opponents, if they happen to watch the stream, won't learn too much. I've got some older Nazca stuff going on here. This is kind of a monster. It's late game with monster size armies. Alright, so clubbing. You hear?
Yep.
Alright.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so let's just whoop. Try not to blow in your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was sounded like you just lit a smoke, just like me, so that was probably you just exhaling. So if we look here, let's maybe talk about some core elements of Nazca. Obviously, you're going to want Royal Malkeys, right?
Yeah. I can see they're incredibly good mages. Yeah.
They are, but they're also incredibly expensive. If you look at your recruitment, 850. On the other hand, every time a Nazca or a Koya dies, you get a Royal Malkey, but it takes one of each. So it'll kill one of your other at random to make the couple, the married dead couple. But Koya are pretty damn important as flying leaders for regular troops. Beautiful leadership, and they're divine blessers. And then, Incas. And then Koyas have good undead leadership. So I find they're pretty useful too. So I end up having to, anytime I played Nazca for my capital, I've ended up having to do a bit of a balance. Somewhat related to gold cost. Eventually, you can see here, I've got lots of money. And then, of course, anytime you're making Royal Malkeys, you're going to want to make the Huaca headdress. And do you know why?
Yeah, because it makes it so they summon extra. I don't remember the name.
Sapea. These guys here.
They're like
Yeah.
ethereal, sacred. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they only go from summoning 2 to summoning 3, but
I need 1 second.
sure. For anybody else, for the sake of spending some fire gems, which you can see here, I have stupid amounts of. I can't even figure out how to spend them. The Huaca headdress are totally worthwhile, and it never hurts for the other characteristics of them. They give you more command. They give you inspirational. It's just a great item.
I had to answer the door real quick and back.
No problem. So another factor with Nazca is how much do you want to set up capturing slaves? And this is an early decision. You get slaves from either buying the plain Malkey, but I usually buy the Puskaspe and then suicide them. They're a little bit cheaper and fewer commander points. Well, no, not fewer, but you can also get yourself into a total deficit spending problem if you make too many of these slave capturing guys. And the slaves are pretty junky, but they fly, they patrol pretty well, and if nothing else, they give you some frontline meat. So I do usually make some of them. Now in this case, I subbed into this turn 40. The infrastructure was okay. At that time, I just sort of had this corner zone. And since then, I've killed off Ulm. I allied with Scalaria. Ulm was up over here, sort of on this peninsula. Ulm, I think somewhat foolishly, went for a strategy of, he went for elemental royalty and artifacts. So construction 8. And against innate casting astral magi who can boost their astral, I just stole all his royalty and took over most of his artifacts. I just enslaved mined them. So that was not a very viable tactic against particularly me, and Nazca had been his neighbor without any obvious diplomatic agreements for 40 turns. So you would have thought he would have been thinking through, who am I going to have to fight? And is something like an SC, a super combatant that is unique, going to work for me? It didn't, so now maybe I'll turn over to you, and that's just a raw set of basics, but what sort of questions do you have?
Yeah, my main problems, I guess, with the nation is that I can't really wrap my head around what it wants as for scales and god design, because
Oh, yeah.
it seems to need like a lot of money because you have
It
really
does.
good, really expensive mages,
It does.
but it also seems to want a very powerful bless for the Supaya and the other sacred troops you get.
Well, let's look at
And
the bless I have.
Yeah.
So this bless I didn't make, but this is a cheap bless. That's a rainbow bless. It's really cheap.
So it's like, I really like rainbow.
Yeah, well, we'll look at the pretender here. I've moved her. I was preparing to astral travel and attack. But this is a very basic. Let's take off the extra gear, just so we can see her without any boosters. So that's a very basic pretender. I don't know why water 4. That would not be my choice. But otherwise, it's the classic 3 points in everything. A bit more in astral so you can make the rings of sorcery and wizardry. And then I'm not totally sure. 4 points, I guess, in blood so you can get. He got surge, right? Where are we here? Blood surge? Sorry, you'd think I'd know this better.
It did have blood surge, I think.
Yeah, but if you really want to cheap out, instead of blood surge, you could go with strength. But the thing is, your capital only sacreds are useful, but you're never going to have a huge amount of them. And they're nothing. Probably their best advantage is storm flying. That's pretty big. And this is a nation that can very easily put up storm with royal malkeys by either communioning, although the only communion slaves you have are pretty expensive. But even so, you could do it. Or you can use power of the spheres and extra gems, and then you start putting up storm. And with storm, the combination of Supayas, who are also storm flying, and your Condor warriors. I never did, and a lot of people do, is just make huge amounts of the cheap Condors, right, from your national.
Yeah, that's the other part that seemed very important for Nazca, because they're like, I think they're also sacred.
They are, absolutely. I've got some here. Where are they? But I didn't make very many because I had other uses for air gems. Where have I got some Condors? I think they're sitting here. Where the heck are my Condors? I know I've got some. I just got to find them. Everybody's...
What were those snake units? I don't think I've seen them before.
Oh, boitadas.
Oh, those are also national, right?
Mm-hmm. But they're only 3 fire gems a pop. And you'll notice here, I've made a huge amount of fire boosters.
Yeah.
So these boitadas, they've got decent map move, not great, and of course they walk. But they've got weaknesses and strength. Take your pick. But when you're sitting on piles of fire gems, there comes a point where you can see here, I built lots of lightless lanterns. But there comes a point where your research is like this, you don't need more lanterns. So then what do you do when you're making, 30 fire gems a turn? You make as many Huaca headdresses as you could wear. There's some forging worthwhile. But I had far fewer earth gems than I did fire, so there's a limit. I don't know where... Oh, here's some condors. So they don't have the storm flying. Bit of a disadvantage. They've got the shock resist. And then, some of the bless is not incarnate, so... But at 8 for 9, so basically a gem a pop, they're perfectly valid. I think by this time in the game, turn 74, their weaknesses are falling behind some of the other options. Mm-hmm. And so I know a lot of people suggest that Nazca goes with a huge bless. I'm not entirely sure that's required. I think the hardest thing with Nazca is there's so many ways to play it.
Let's see. Yeah, what I've seen most suggested around is Air 7 for thunder weapons.
Yeah.
I guess for the condors because they have 2 attacks and they fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And also because I think the spell itself scales really well with extra air.
It does. So if your pretender is...
Yeah,
it does scale quite well if we look at the spell.
And A7 pretender could summon like, I don't know, 20 condors or something.
Well, you'd have to check. It might be plus 1/2 per level. Well, I can bring over the mod inspector here and we can look that up. If it's only half per level, A7's only giving you, 3 extra. So that's not quite as much.
Oh, okay. So it's less good than I imagined. Okay.
Well, it depends. So let's jump to Nazca and go to spells. National. Condors. No, it's 1 per level. So you would be getting 5 extra, so that's 8. That's 13 per cast with the Dare 7. So that's worthwhile. Quite a bit more efficient. On the other hand, if you're only your pretenders making condors, you're not going to be making a huge amount. Depending on your air income, you might do better just having every single air 2 mage you've got make condors until you run out of gems.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find that scaling on condors is going to have a major effect, because a single, at 13 a turn, that's not really massive. Whereas 10 magi making 8, that's 80 a turn. You can, and I think the other thing with condors, you can make them on the fly as you need them, and that's a nice advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to stock them up. You can sit there and save your gems, make them suddenly, and then send out a whole pile of raids or major attacks all at one go. But if we look at the national spells, are we seeing all of them here? We're not seeing all of them here. Why am I not seeing all of them? Because there's a couple other really tasty spells in here for Nazca. All schools, all rituals. We should be seeing... Oh, I know why. Sorry. I'm playing this game in... this is Dominions Enhanced, which does kind of mess things up a little bit. So that's why we're not seeing some of them in the mod inspector. And I think the boitatas are a mod inspector effect.
Yeah, I couldn't find the.
No, that's part of mod inspector. Probably because Red Rob looked at the fact that Nazca's probably going to be floating in fire gems and went, geez, we have to give him something to do with that. So, and I've almost never used summon Sapayas. The reason is, if you've got death gems, you got a whole pile of nice Death 2 Magi. Giving them skull staves to cast better death magic is probably more cost effective than summoning Sapayas using gems.
Yeah, I imagine twice burning and giving them.
There's that too.
All the time is a better use of gems.
Maybe. I think the most efficient item in the game, or ways to spend death gems, are skull staves. Because if you've got any kind of a death mage, skull staves just let them summon more skeletons or throw out more shadow blasts, or take your pick.
Yeah.
But second to skull staves, skull mentors are efficient, and like you said, twice burning at times is very high quality. Although the patch where twice burning became size dependent changes that a bit.
Yeah.
And then summon Huakas, I don't know. There's an awful lot of things you want pearls for. Boosters and maybe, spells during battle for power of the spheres and light of the northern star. So I'm not sure. I did have a previous game, I don't have examples of it around, where I was Nazca in a team of 3, and I did summon some Huakas, but I think the core problem with it is just pearls are kind of pretty valuable. But I think you could play, I think Nazca, I don't think there's a meme build for Nazca, because now with this game and the other game, in both cases I used a moderate bless and pretty good scales. And it was perfectly adequate, because you've got those different tools. You've got reanimation, you've got slave summoning, you got slaves for cheap raiding, and then you've got condors. So Air 7's a fairly cheap bless though, so depending on which choice you went. We can have a quick look at a couple of pretender options. Just exit this game.
Yeah, I think that'll help me the most.
Sure.
Actually.
Let's turn off the mod, so that makes things a little wonky. Let's go to Nazca. So, assuming you go dormant, air, fire, water, not bad. What have you got for the stone Huaca? Air and earth. Well, that's a pretty good combo. So definitely things you could do there. So if we were to...
The one I've been looking at the most are the immobile national,
right,
and the Frost Father, because he has already 2 paths.
Frost
And
Father.
very cheap
Whoops,
to
how did
raid.
I muck this up? Oh, as a rainbow. Yeah, well, there's sure an awful lot of nice ways to pick a rainbow for this nation. So you're down here with the Frost Father. Oh, yeah, that would save you quite a few points, because boom, there you are at the 7. And if you went, say, just elementals, you went dormant, and then I would still grab astral, but I might skip out the others. The only trouble is getting your Dominion candles up is kind of painful. And of course you can go for cold if you're going to go Sapayas, because they aren't much affected. And you got cold resist on a lot of things. So that's not a bad combo. So we're sitting here with Dominion 4. Let's just stick with neutral scales for the moment. We're left with 59 points. A fairly effective bless, a few different options there. Or vice versa, if we jump to this guy. And I would probably quickly go to 5 and thunder weapons and double resist. That's a lot of more. That's a lot of extra points you've got here. You know, we just got 200 spare points for scales, and that's a fine bless.
Can even get another high level path on the god even.
You sure could.
Really good.
If there was one you really wanted, I'm not really sure if there's one I could think of I'd want.
I'd go for scales though.
Me too. Nazca does really like scales. Plus, I'd be pumping this up probably there to 7, so you've got that's a multiple of 40. Might go production. Could definitely, grab some more points there. Got an option of luck or magic, or you got lots of options there. But that's a perfectly adequate bless. That one looks good. I'd definitely try that, test it, see how you like it.
Yeah, I'll try something like that.
Because otherwise, I'd be looking at one of the Titans. I don't think I'd want to be using the rainbow for this. Well, it depends. But, definitely either this, the Apu, or this guy, Viracocha.
Not a lot of general.
No, it's not a very big pantheon, so I'm getting a lot of wind noise there from somebody. But yeah, those are pretty viable. You could do something funky here, but I don't think I would. And of course, some people like the Demi-Lich because it is stupid cheap.
Oh yeah, that's also an option, I guess.
If we wanted to go with a Demi-Lich, I would probably get rid of that. I don't know what Death Bless would really be worthwhile, but I think I definitely that's 110 points with the price reduction. It's much cheaper than the Monolith. Oracle, there's nothing here that you really want. And 2 of those Titans would be interesting. I think Air Bless is Thunder Weapons does seem to be very sensible. I would not go with the Monster Expander.
No, the nation doesn't seem like
Nah.
Like it needs it a lot.
No, you got lots of ways to expand without it. And then, but with the Rainbow, you do have the advantage of going like in the game I was showing, with a much lighter bless but a very broad bless, and that does add a whole bunch of little, stat boosts and all those goodies. But this guy, air plus attack plus defense, that could be interesting. I don't know if it's better, but pretty expensive.
Yeah, it costs a lot of points.
That does cost a lot of points.
Like it's like double the stone.
No, if you wanted to go with attack and defense plus, I'd be going with the Rainbow. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd probably be looking at other ways to increase killing power, such as plus strength, possibly some resists. Yeah, I'd be doing a Rainbow if you felt that was the way you wanted to go. But I like that one. Definitely like that one. Point buffing. All right. If you can hang on there, P, I'll jump back over to the Marverni game. But I just want to check if Clubbing has any other questions about Nazca.
Oh, no, that this has been generally very helpful and giving me insight on what exactly the nation is supposed to do.
All right, good. Okay, let's go over to my...
Thanks a lot.
No problem. No problem. Anytime. You got questions like this and you just want to drop in for a quick Q&A, just ping me.
So, everyone's in here all early.
Early morning? Yeah, my sleep schedule gets kind of wonky. I tend to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Woke up and checked my Dominion games, and everyone's in here, and I was like, all right, I'll join.
Who's that?
Me, I'm Z4.
Oh, Hey, Pax. Yeah, Z4 Pax. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's cold this morning.
Is it?
You prefer Pax or Z4?
Either war's fine. It's not my real name, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my real name's Dawn, which is no secret to anybody because that's what my YouTube is.
My name is Zach, though no one shall remember it.
There you go. Okay, so we had a question in the text chat on Twitch. What is point buffing? Some people use the word fluffing. I think point buffing is a little more accurate way to demonstrate it. These guys here are set up for that script. So what you see here is I've got a bunch of inexpensive 45 gold Astral 1 Magi, and they are currently scripted to luck, cheat, fate, and luck. The guys they're trying to buff are set here, hold, attack, rear. They're quite close. These are short range spells. If we have a quick look, luck is range 10, but the real magic we're looking for is body ethereal. We'll get next turn. Body ethereal is only range 5. So we need the magi quite close to what they're trying to buff. The last example I was doing, I didn't have this spaced right. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to change up to something a little bit more funky. I'm trying to get them to not buff the boar warriors who are already adequately blessed. I'm trying to get them to buff the cavalry, and to get as many buffs as possible, I'm going to stick them in front of the cavalry, so they'll be casting buffs behind them and in front.
I wish you could target spells the same way you could target, like, archers.
Wouldn't-
Target with archers.
Wouldn't that be nice? That is a request that many people have requested. But requesting things of Illwinter that aren't capable of being modded is a slow and complex process. Illwinter doesn't answer most requests. If you look at the wish list, it's so huge. I'm sure that 99% of any requests are lost in the chatter. And I'm on the beta team, and even when we make requests in our little private group of 10 of us, we often don't hear back. Which isn't
a very small group.
The beta is? Well, but it's only 2 developers, so I don't think it's bad that it's small. There are more people in the beta, it's just that there's only about 10 of us that are still active. So I don't really need any more of those guys. Oh, I'm not going to make enough of those to even matter, so I'm not going to bother with that. What's available here? So we were wondering if these are worth buying. Poor researchers. The randoms are Astral Death and Nature, none of which do much for me, but I would possibly get some interesting crosspaths. They are 2 recruitment points, so that would work without a fort, but I'd have to buy both a lab and a temple. That's a lot of gold for a sort of okay mage that only adds a little bit to what I can already do. Anyways, we wanted to see an example of point buffing at work, so let's send these guys off. Now I think at this point in time, no, I'm not quite there. So I'll keep recruiting stargazers for the moment. And I've filled my recruitment. I don't really want lizards. Is there anything here? Resources
I love those little dog dudes.
Yeah, those are not bad. They're undisciplined, which is a nuisance. They're an animal. It's not really a big deal. Dark vision
I
is
never noticed.
Yeah. Well, it affects a few things, but
Those animal control spells. It'd be annoying if you were playing End and you masked a lot of those guys.
yeah. But, and what about these bows? Short bow, Strength 14. I don't see anything, and I don't like bows when they're on undisciplined. But I am going to buy these.
I would use the javelin dudes all day.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you there. Now this guy.
Got one of your commanders freaking a berserker.
Well, a pillager.
Not so bad.
Pillager is. There are times when that's handy.
Yeah,
Well,
you need monies.
Sabocat made a point here that point buffing is a really powerful counter to rushing, and it is. You know, against giants and other sorts of things. I made the comment, I think, before you got here, that my number one defense against being rushed is good diplomacy. Of course, there are some critical spells that can save your bacon if you get rushed before turn 12. After turn 12, normally you've hopefully got your Pretender out, your Incarnate Blesses are running. You know, your real risk is that turn 9 to 12 of being rushed.
Yeah.
And so have you planned some counters?
Diplo is
Rush.
very strong, but it's not a guarantee, though. You can still get rushed anyway. And
Oh, you mean he's saying he's actually talking about rushing the other guy with Marverni? Well, we could have a long, complex ethical discussion about what does rushing work. Rushing works exceptionally well when you're a very good player and your opponent is new. It's unbelievably good then. Does it work against veteran players? Not very often. The last guy who rushed me, it took 40 turns for him to kill me. He did kill me, and he died on turn 30. So that's what happens. And in those 40 turns, I dragged the game out for ages. And it took 3 of them to kill me. So, actually, that's one of 2 recent rushes. The latest rush, it's turn 24, and the guy who tried to rush me is dead. And I'm fine. So, if you talk to people who played this game a lot, most of them know how to stop a rush, at least stop them in their tracks, make it a Pyrrhic victory. So yeah, you might die, but they die too. So go ahead and try. If you're using a point buffing strategy as a method to kill another player early in a rush, you know, post some results. If we had some data, we might be able to say, is this a viable strategy? I'm skeptical. And it does depend on where you play and the kind of games you play. Okay, let's watch this fight. Okay, so my losses were insignificant. And I didn't even have much ranged. Normally, the easiest solution to barbarians is shoot them till they run away. In this case, I ran up and beat on them directly. So let's see why that worked. So what I really want to watch here is, are my spells targeting effectively? The Boar Warriors here are going to get the bless. And this, we've got a multiple rainbow bless. So they did a bit of luck on themselves. I'd hoped they'd all be stuck in only 2 squares, but it didn't work out. And again, they're mucking about blessing themselves, buffing themselves, which is always frustrating. But there we go. So all the cavalry have luck. Some of them have cheat fate. Oh, and sure enough, none of those buffs are going to matter a whole bunch because they're about to kill all the commanders. So we aren't really seeing a great example of this. Probably a more effective example to demonstrate this is sending sort of 5 of these Aponies out, just led by a Stargazer, and seeing how they can do it, dealing with ordinary stuff. But since we're chugging away, let's just keep chugging. We'll prep another expansion party. But now we're going to have some way to bless it, so we better swap out and buy a priest. That means we're wasting a spot on a Boar Warrior. We'll get a few more ponies. And off we go. So let's talk about some of the critical factors. It's turn 10. I've done almost everything I can to get to body ethereal earlier than I might have otherwise got to if I just bought ordinary Magi instead of the Awake Researcher. But it's turn 10. I don't know if you can. I guess you could probably roll it out by turn 8, but boy, it's tricky. So that's some of where my skepticism about does the point buffing strategy really work. And I guess if we try to sum it up, I don't know if they target highest hit point density, and that's a really good question.
I think they do. I
All
believe
right.
I've read this.
Let's try that.
Wouldn't it be kind of good just to put the mages inside the cav, so if they try to bless themselves, at least they'll bless the cav at the
Well,
same time?
I moved them forward, so hopefully they can cast 4 buff spells. The idea is they cast 2 when they're behind them on hold. They run past, they still get another one, and maybe even a 4th one. That was why I moved them forward. Does that make sense?
Perfect, sir.
But what if I put 2 of them smuck in the middle? So let's put the first 2 smuck in the middle, and let's put the other ones even farther forward, and then move them apart a little bit. Actually, I wanted the first 2. It's just the simplest way to do it. Okay, here's the next one. So let's move that guy up there. That guy beside him. This guy beside him. This guy there. Let's see if that helps. It's a good question, and I don't know the answer. And I guess at this point, no, but now I want to change this up. So I think I want 1 luck and 2 body ethereals. And I don't think I want cheat fate anymore. Let's make that number 4. So let's, that didn't work. Control 4. There we go. 4. So let's try this one. Let's see how this works. So I'm basically experimenting. Well, we're going to try a mix of both now, as far as which square we put them in. And if you really want to talk to sort of the guy who promotes this method the most on the immersion server, don't know, do you guys know the immersion Discord? I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe just for the sake of those who don't, let me quickly grab an invite link. Use copy button. Well, that's what I'm doing. Well, I don't know what this thing's doing. Post it here. There we go. So that's a public Discord open to everybody. It's run by Chuman, good friend of mine. And there's a number of the mentors there that are far more expert at this point buffing strategy than I am. I have used it a little bit at times, but I've never built around it deliberately. So we want one of these guys. What do we got? We don't really have enough to send them out. We buy it 1 priest. Couldn't quite. How come we couldn't afford that? 18. Oh, we're out of recruitment points. Okay, so we're maxed out. So what are we at for stream length now? Coming on an hour and a half. And I don't think I've answered the questions. But let's just see if experimenting with setup is making a difference on how well the buffing works. Maybe I'll turn on verbose information. So these guys, what did they do? They lucked their square, okay? And they lucked that square, okay? And these guys lucked around themselves. Well, I'm not seeing anything about hit points working here, because these guys cast luck on a square with 9 hit points and ignored a square in range with 24. No, they're not out of range. Luck is a range 10. So that didn't work. The hit point thing didn't work. It doesn't look like the density issue. Yeah, see, and they're still in range of body ethereal. It's range 5. And this is, looks to me, no, maybe it's a little more than 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm 1 square too far. But even so, look at these guys. Well, okay, so that square's 18 hit points. This is 24. They buffed the 18 hit point square. That's a possibility. He said put 3. So, but we were trying to answer the question of, are they going to target higher hit point squares over lower hit point squares? I think we've answered that question. The answer is no. And if we put 3 mages in the square, that's going to be 9, that's 27. That'll be the higher hit point square. So that would have mucked up this test.
I feel like the mages like prioritize themselves.
That is my experience. So, you know.
Little bastards.
I know. It's seriously exasperating. But we do have a number of ethereal cavalry, you know, with pony knights here. So they're more or less unkillable. Some of them went past and killed the commander. So this isn't a perfect example, but I think we've answered the question that no, they do not seem to target buffs based on hit point density. Alright, let's try. So then, that didn't really work. So let's stuff all the magi in what we hope are 2 squares. So we'll take the first 3 at the top and put them in this square. And let's make sure that is exactly 5 ahead. So let's put all of them right here. And then we'll move them manually exactly 5 squares. So that they are in range for body ethereal. So we'll leave 3 back. And we'll move, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we know where we want them. We want them, 3 of them right there. So that's a square full of magi and another square full of magi. Let's just see how that really works. Let's try this throne. It's a little bit tough, but I think we'll win it. I suppose I should actually go and put up at least a little bit of province defense everywhere.
So you would always just put 1.
I use a lot of varied province defense. At least 1, but I usually go for 6. The reason for that is because 6 to 19 has the same scout report, so they don't know if it's 6 or 19 or anything in between. 6 also stops some bad events. 11 also stops some bad events. So I rarely do 10, I'll often do 11 for the little bit extra money. 10, you get the little bit of patrol and unrest reduction. So 1, 6, and 11 are my rule of thumb for point defense. But there's justifications. Let's see if I got an example. No. If you've got heavy cavalry, 7 gives you an extra heavy cavalry. Or you might see it here. So at 2, yeah, no, we're not getting anything too useful here. Those are some of the other options you can use. So we're not particularly, see, these guys can't even preach. Anyways, we bought them as a commander. But now we need more stargazers. And we have used up our recruitment points. So I think I might have wanted some growth here. Let's just see what we get here as an answer to how the buffing went. Well, I didn't lose any pony knights. So where are these guys going to buff? Okay, so there you go. They buffed their own square. That means that of the 3 of them, 1 of them used it on themselves. The other 2 used it on others. So that was successful. That was a good call. Let's see what the body ethereal does. Alright, so they did their own square, so we should have 4 more body ethereals going out here. And nicely, they targeted very useful things. And the next cast of Body Ethereal is not gonna, so they might actually change their spells up. Yeah, they did some Cheat Fate and some Starfires. So there you go. So these guys are all sitting here ethereal and lucky. And chances are basically unkillable by ordinary troops. And off they go, they're going to kill the commanders. Alright. So I think I've reached as much as I'm going to learn from this little experiment. Anybody got any obvious questions? I might start to wind this up. Anybody?
Oh, not really. No.
Okay. Nobody in text. Nobody in. Nobody here in voice.
Oh yeah, I was muted for a second. How good are those boar warriors for Marverni, or should you just go like sloth and use your naked dudes rather than your armored guys?
Well, I think your answer has more to do with my pretender than anything else. This is a full rainbow awake researcher, so I've got a huge pile of minor bless. Because I have a huge pile of minor bless, that makes boar warriors a heck of a lot better than they would otherwise be. If you were doing something else, like the thrice-horned boar with just nature bless, or just almost no bless, and using it as an awake expander with better scales, I wouldn't be buying boar warriors. And of course, you could always do a Marverni build where your focus is a good bless for the free spawn boars by when you use your national spell. Where are we here? Nature, right? The Boar of Carnutes, the Great Boar, who summons boars all the time, and or just buying boars. If you reuse those, we could look here on the Mod Inspector. I'd definitely be using a different bless if that was my primary focus. But because I was building the Pretender for the very specific purpose of using an Awake Great Sage to maximize research, I ended up choosing lots and lots of little blesses. So with all those little blesses, it makes sense to use the Boar Warrior. Solid answer?
If
You cut out part.
Oh, you didn't take growth. That's the reason you're able to afford that. I was like, how did he afford all that bless?
Well, yeah, no, my scales aren't very good. They're nothing too wonderful at all. But the whole point was to get these research points way the hell up there. And
yeah,
you get,
that's a lot of research that
yeah,
early.
And you get research points from Magic Pass. You know, it doesn't do you any good, and it's not cost effective to get one path high. You want lots of paths low to get the maximum research points. And if you're already buying one, why not buy three? And so the only bump I did was Astral, particularly just so that Astral 4 just makes forging better down the road. So this is a very particular build, and in this case, you know, Boar Wars, but I've got really low Dominion with only 4 candles. I don't know why it's 5 right now. I guess just it happened. But that means I just can't buy a whole heck of a lot of the Sacreds at the best of times.
Alright.
Any other questions? Well, you guys couldn't really... I was flipping there and showing you the Pretender, and you couldn't actually see it. So let's do that again. So here's the Blast. Right? So magic weapons, a couple of resistances, some attacks, some defense, little undying to make them live longer, a serious amount of boosted strength so they hit like a ton of bricks. You know, that makes for a pretty tough Sacred when you're only paying, what is it, 23 or 25 gold a Sacred.
24.
Yeah. And then here's the Pretender. So pretty straightforward.
What kind of bless would you go for if you were just going to use the boars?
Well, I guess the
So I've been
thing
looking
is,
at Marverni.
I don't know. I have to look at the boars. Let's pull them out.
They're just fat old tramplers.
Yeah, but how are you really gonna? What are you gonna do to them to make them more efficient? So I got to change nation here. So here's our boars. So they're size 3. Nothing special for protection. A single attack. Got good attack skill. No defense skill to speak of. So they're going to get hit. They're going to die. They're undisciplined. They're really hard to buff because they run forward all the time. I did use them in a Disciples game, and I was able to figure out some methods to buff them, but it wasn't really until later when I could use things like Marble Warriors and do an area of effect buff. The obvious thing would be larger, because then they can trample cavalry. And larger resist wouldn't hurt. So anything kind of cheap. I wouldn't probably bother with regen. It's just too expensive for the purpose. So then, I don't know, I'd be seriously looking at just give them larger. It gives them more hit points. And then once you've got larger, if you're going to do anything else, grab some blesses that help your magi. But I think you could make an argument for doing nothing but larger. And since larger is not incarnate, you could use an imprisoned Pretender and just get insane amounts of scales. That makes sense? So let's just have a quick look here. What sorts of things might I want to do? Gotta move that mod inspector out of the way. Increasing the mount move, yeah. So, well, and hopefully the commander you're using is a pig. So that's not a bad option. What is that guy going on about? What is a brugger? Do we have a troll in the Twitch chat? That's pretty funny.
No, it's one of my friends. It's fine.
Oh, it's one of your friends. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm glad you told me that. So, I mean, I might be looking at, I don't know, what's the cheapest way to get a larger bus? Probably the Great Mother, right? So there's larger. Now we can decide what else we may or may not want to do. And if you go imprisoned, my God, I mean, you've got a huge amount of points.
I can't remember whose game it was, but somebody on YouTube won a game as Marverni in a Blitz, and they chose to make their god dormant so they could get high nature, so they could cast Mother Oak, so they could spam out those boars.
Well, and a Mother Oak rush is perfectly sensible.
I'd do that if there wasn't a Pangea. If there's a Pangea, I just wouldn't even try.
And I think you got to look at, I can't remember the national income, but the key usually to a Mother Oak rush is 3 nature gems a turn from your capital. And once you have that, everything else gets a little easier. But I could see that being viable. So if I was going to go dormant, I think I'd probably still pick the Great Mother. I'd go probably with maybe growth. And then I might be looking to increase the nature a bit. Mother Oak is 5, I think. So would I get anything really useful here? Well, there's nothing wrong with major poison resist. So that's not bad. You could start playing around something like that.
Keep your mages alive, I guess, from foul vapors.
When you cast Mother Oak, do you prefer overcasting immediately, or do you just go for the cheap early cast?
I think your question is more about how do you effectively cast gem-generating globals, and
Yeah.
that's a return on investment question. It's really a financial question. Um, you can either cast it cheapest and hope you get payback before anybody notices, and or they just don't bother because they don't know if you overcast. There's no point overcasting a little bit, although I could argue maybe 10 overcast is just enough to stop a sloppy dispel. But most of the time I consider overcasting gem globals to be a huge mistake, because then you start pushing your return on investment or your payback time to
Yeah,
10 to
you
20
have to
turns.
consider all the gems that your opponents will waste trying to overcast you. You know,
They're,
spend
yeah,
70 and
but are they going to? If I'm sitting there with a bunch of nature gems, you've cast Mother Oak, do I want to try to overcast it or do I want to put up Gift of Health?
I mean, mid game, depends, but
See, overcasting an either offensive or defensive global is a different story because they don't have a obvious return on investment or a payback time. So Vengeful Water, yeah, I'm going to overcast it with 300 water gems if I have them, because I'm happy to see you pour pearls at it forever and ever and ever. Or Dark Skies, or Gift of Health, or any kind of global that gives you combat power. But a global that just gives you gems, you have to ask the question, I'm going to spend 50 gems on a global. Could I use those 50 gems to forge items or summon troops that'll do more good right now versus when this starts to pay off down the road?
yeah, I suppose.
There's also a sort of diplomatic element towards globals. You can make yourself a target, right? If you get too many globals up too early, I mean, you're now a target. Uh-oh, this guy's he's going to win the game. He's got all these globals up.
Right.
The analysis of that,
those gems.
yeah,
And if you spend all those gems early, it doesn't have any for items and tugs and things like that. So maybe it's not that in a good position, actually.
I rarely see people win just because they have globals. But we did win one Disciples game where there was 15 global slots and we got all 15. But that's because the other teams totally ignored us and fought each other. So by the time they finally noticed we were going to win, we had this absolutely huge gem income.
Right.
And in that case, because they weren't paying any attention to globals, we didn't overcast anything. There was no point.
That's a bit lucky though. It's unusual to have players who don't pay attention to globals. I mean,
Yeah,
I think they were busy just killing each other because they were salty, if I remember right.
that is exactly what happened. And that is not uncommon. People getting salty and losing track of the object of the game. Well, I guess it depends on
restrain.
I guess it depends on what your object is. To me, the object of the game is try to win. So letting your saltiness interfere with your strategic judgment, that's very common. And I see it all the time. So in terms of how often do I see people not paying attention adequately to what's going on with globals, it's more common than you think, for the very reason that a saltiness problem can lead to that. So I think just to back to the question on the boar strategy, I think you got a whole bunch of different interesting options, and you might want to try to mix and match. I always like a pretty broad strategic plan where I've got different options I can shift to as the situation changes. One-shot meme type builds such as, I don't know, throwing up Burden of Time really early. It works, maybe. But what if it goes wrong? Do you have a backup? Mother Oak early, though, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a dirt cheap global. You're going to get some more gems. You can turn those gems into good things right off the bat.
And
But
those, what's in alterations also good for you, because you got
as a global,
No, I mean as just battle spells and everything, because you're an astral nation. You got like luck and body ethereal, like the point buffing you were just showing. Too.
Oh,
so
yeah,
if you wanted a point buff.
Absolutely, you could sure point buff boars. I don't think I have the example around. I just know that trying to point buff boars is even more annoying than what we fiddled with today. You can do it, but you got to stick them way at the back. You got to stick the buffers way up front. Count your squares of movement. Get those ranges right. Because what are the boars again for combat move? Pretty.
16.
Yeah. So you got to be way the hell up front with your magi to even hit them.
I suppose you could use some of your other units as like a wall.
Well, but then the boars have to move around the wall. I have used where I've stuck a line of javelins to block all the boars and tie them up. You need a long wall. But that does work. So then the boars have to wiggle their way through openings, and a similar technique can be used to buff elementals when you're summoning them, is make sure they have nowhere to go so they sit there.
Oh, it's Helene and McCone. I mean, Helene and Seth.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been talking. I saw you guys, but no one's been saying anything.
Well,
I said something. I mean, not much, but...
People
you did.
People have talked, but I after a while you get used to, you got to keep a patter going if you're broadcasting. So I try to pause and say, does anybody have a question? But I do try to fill the silences.
My brain's a little fuzzy. I just woke up.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and also as a viewer, you don't really want to interrupt too much, so it's a tough balance, I guess.
It is, but feel free to ask questions or if you've got a comment. So I think I'm going to wind it up, guys. Thank you very much for coming in and joining the broadcast. And
thank you. It was a good stream.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just for people in Twitch I'm pretty sure everybody in Twitch knows me and finds me from the Nexus. But if you didn't, I'll toss up the Nexus.
Will this be on YouTube?
I'll put it over there probably just right away. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm going to hear my own voice. I don't approve.
It is a funny thing. So, because actually, I get a lot more watches on YouTube when I move them over there. I got 100 views the first day I put up the Boxing Day stream. Whereas sitting here in chat, I've got 8 viewers and those of you who are watching on Discord. So, a lot more people see it on YouTube.
Probably just how that YouTube recommendation doing its job, I guess.
Well,
maybe people just subscribed, or I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that they prefer streaming on YouTube as well for various reasons, but I've got this set up. I'm trying it out. I'll make adaptations as I see how things go. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Keep your eyes peeled in Discord, and like I mentioned to a couple people, if you have a specific topic you want to cover, talk to me. We can schedule it and do up a stream here.
Will do.
All right. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, yeah.